This is Mark Shafer with the Jefferson County Historic Preservation Commission. Today is March 23rd, 1996. We're preparing to do some field work researching or surveying Loudon barns and other buildings associated with the Louden Machinery Company. This is the title page for a booklet called Evidence, recently acquired by Gene Luedtke, that is filled with testimonials and pictures of Loudon barn equipment and people's reactions to their fine products. This picture illustrates the storing of Timothy hay in the farm barn using Loudon hay carrier and triple harpoon fork. This illustration is the filling up of the home barn with clover hay using Loudon's Balance grapple hay fork. This clover hay was short and rather dry. Note the good big quantity the fork will lift. Wherever Loudon hay carriers and Loudon hay forks are used, a maximum amount of hay can be handled. This picture shows Loudon's Balance grapple hay fork just entering the hay door with a big bunch of hay. This page from the evidence booklet is of Mr. Gerald Getz of Salisbury, Missouri. His barn was taken, the picture was taken in this barn, and he writes us under the date of March 15, 1910. Referring to his Loudon litter carrier, Mr. Getz says, and I quote, "After trying a manure and litter carrier of another make for about 3 months, I discarded it, as it would not give me any satisfaction, and I put in one of your cable manure and litter carriers. I have had it in operation now over 6 months, and must say that it does give entire satisfaction. Wishing your firm success." Signed, Gerald Getz. L.D. Odell, proprietor of the Summit Stock Farm in Chaffee, New York, has his modern dairy barn fitted up complete with Loudon cow stalls, stanchions, litter carriers, etc. This is the last page of the evidence booklet put out by the Louden Machinery Company. The top picture is from a barn in Attica, Kansas. Their letter of commendation came in 1910 to the company. And then if you'll direct your attention to the bottom picture, that's the Empire City Farms, and it reads as follows. A new fireproof barn on the Empire City Farms, Cuba, New York. This building is equipped with 2 Loudon hay carriers, 2 litter carriers, and a feed carrier. After using the Loudon hay carrier for 1 year, they were so well pleased they put in a complete system of the Loudon overhead track and litter carriers. And this is put out by the Dearborn Engraving Company of Chicago. This is a photograph of what's known as the Loudendale barn. This was on William Loudon's father-in-law's property. And this is not the original barn that he developed his old number 1 hay carrier in 1867. This particular building was put up in 1890. And we'll be visiting that today. It has started to go to rack and ruin, so it's good that we're documenting the building or whatever's left of it. But this is what it looked like a few years ago before the elements had their way. This is the William Loudon home at 5th and Washington, I believe 501 West Washington, the way it appeared, about 1910. This is actually a photocopy of the original picture, and the people aren't really too visible in here from this shot, but just for your information, Ab or Albert Fry is on the left, and his wife, William Loudon's daughter, Agnes Loudon Fry, is second from left. The small child sitting cross-legged is William Fry, and behind him is William Loudon himself, and to our right of William Fry is Aunt Mary Fry, William Loudon's wife, and then the man on the far right is not identified.
This is Will Page. Mark, you know, you've been looking at this picture of the William Loudon house, And I thought it'd be interesting to call the viewer's attention to several aspects of the picture that are unique and perhaps interesting. Mark, as you can see, the picture is a very formal composition, and it's intended to convey certain feelings. First of all, of course, it is a picture of the house as an edifice, but more important than that, it also conveys certain aspects, I think, of William Louden and William Louden's family life, and also, in a way, a certain attitude of Victorian society in America. First of all, you can see the man at the far left of the photograph. What is he doing? He's holding a tool in his hand, and he's clearly edging the lawn. The same thing could be said about William Louden himself. Although it's difficult to see him, he's standing by the porch of the house here. He has a lawnmower, and he appears to be mowing the lawn. And then there's a man on the far right of the photograph, the unidentified individual, who's also edging the grass. So we see the men in the picture engaged in, quote-unquote, profitable work. They're actually doing something. Life is earnest. Life is real. This is a very Victorian attitude towards life, and the men in this picture are calling attention to that point of view. In contrast, we see the image of the idolized Victorian woman conveyed in the picture as well. The younger woman stands here with a croquet mallet in her hand, with a croquet ball. There's also a wicket here for the game, and she's obviously engaged in a leisurely recreational pursuit. The same can be said for Mrs. Louden. She's standing here and is pensively gazing at the camera, also in a leisurely attitude. So, in addition to this photograph being a family album piece, in addition to the photograph highlighting the family home, the picture also conveys to us a very formalized attitude and a very intentionally composed composition conveying these various attitudes of Victorian society in America.
This is the R.B. Louden house at the corner of 2nd and Washington in Fairfield. R.B. Louden was William Louden's youngest brother and joined the business as chief executive officer. Helped with marketing and got William Louden back on track in terms of making a success of marketing all the products that they had. All of his inventions. This house it's a brick house originally built in the early 1870s. You can see the date of the house engraved on the windowsill. It's a sandstone windowsill on the attic window along the south end of the building. And this is a 1920s view prior to the remodeling of the porches about 1928. The open porch was taken off and the present enclosed sun porches were added. Roberta Louden McCoy, R.B.'s daughter who lives in Mount Pleasant, informed me that she was very happy to see that porch torn off. It being an open porch, it would get dusty and dirty, and it was her job as a child to scrub it. So once they had the enclosed porches, that job was no longer one of her duties. Of course, by then she was an adult and probably had somebody else doing it anyway, but she was happy to see the thing go. The blueprints are still in existence. They were made up by the Louden Barn Planning Department, and the underpinnings of the addition are fitted with Louden hardware. This is an exciting thing that's come to our attention. Gene Luedtke has loaned this to the Historic Preservation Commission. It's a poster, the only one any of us have ever seen, that advertises Loudon playground equipment. They had purchased a company in Ottawa, Illinois, and maintained the manufacture of the playground equipment and just put the Loudon name on it. I played on one of these. We called it a giant stride. Yeah, that's what it was called, a giant stride. Big, heavy honking chains with these little ladders, and you'd play on it by yourself, and the chains would wrap around your head and give you a bloody nose, but it was a lot of fun. Can't play with those things today, you get sued. Really nice graphics. Loudon had just excellent, excellent advertising material. And this is a charming little vignette from probably the 20s, judging from the style of the drawing and the clothing of children playing on the name Loudon, which literally happened when they would climb the ladder of a slide. And we'll be seeing one of those ladders later today. Here we have the reverse side. Actually, this might be the front side, because when this was all folded up, you'd have like a little cover, and you would just open it up, and you see the upper left-hand corner is upside down. And then you have other graphics and plugs for the Loudon equipment. It includes a little blueprint for a playground setup that I don't think would be visible on camera. But we're pulling in here on what they called the Whirl-Around, and we're going to find out if this is identical to the one that's on the country club grounds. I think there was probably one in Chautauqua Park at one time. Logan School certainly had Loudon playground equipment. Lincoln School, I remembered some of the monkey bars and the swing sets and so forth, which are long gone. But at one time, the Loudon Company had supplied playground equipment to all the schools here in Fairfield. Will Page is going to give us a little sociological commentary on the graphics right above the Whirl-Around picture.
Mark, you know, this graphic is interesting to me because it calls attention to certain aspects of the progressive movement in the United States. During the first couple decades of the 20th century, people became very concerned about education and the course education was taking and proper educational methods. And part of the progressive movement developed into what has since been called the playground movement. And this was actually an organized effort to improve children's play, and not only that, but to build schoolhouses with attached playgrounds beside them. Up until that time in urban settings, playgrounds had not really been attached to school grounds proper. And so all of this Loudon playground equipment plays into the playground movement. And as Mark had said, the company was very good in terms of their advertising, both in terms of the text and in terms of the graphics for their advertising. And here, in this cut, we can see both of these ideas that I've been talking about. On the one hand, we see the teacher in the classroom, and on the left, we see the playground attached to the urban school. And the text reads, "They are equally important factors in your educational program." This is one of the cardinal aspects of the playground movement, and here we have it expressed in a Loudon piece of advertising.
Will, would you read the complete Loudon line of playground equipment that's listed there?
The Loudon complete line of playground equipment: giant whirl-around, ocean wave, swing bob, giant stride, slides, 6 swing sets, 3 swing sets, baby swings, traveling rings, seesaw outfits, gym sets, horizontal ladders, horizontal bars, jumping and vaulting standards, football goals, basketball goals, baseball backstops, tennis posts, volleyball posts, water equipment, flagpoles, and sandboxes. I particularly like the swing bob, which I would characterize as the dentist's delight. This is one of these swings that the advertising said could accommodate up to a dozen children. And I think if we saw an example on the other side of that piece of equipment, we could quickly figure out why it would be characterized as I've just expressed.
Yeah, some of this stuff was really dangerous, but it was fun. Well, this is Mark Shafer again. I'm going to introduce our in-the-field activities. We're on our way out to the back of the high school to look at a Loudon slide ladder. It goes to the press box. It's pretty windy today, so I don't know how well our dialogue will pick up outside in the wind. So you're going to just have to remember everything we told you here in my classroom. The picture I have in my hand is an enlargement, a copy of a woodcut from the 1860s, which shows some of William Loudon's early hay carrier setups. It's an open-air tripod for building bigger and better haystacks in a day that preceded the large haymow barns. His inventions allowed barns to be built larger, but it took a little while for farmers to catch on to this technology and make use of it. And of course I have one of the pulleys next to me that was used in a barn at the turn of the century here in Jefferson County. The name Loudon is cast in the metal portion, which was no doubt poured at Isla Malibu, founded in 1904 in cooperation with, I think it was the Dane Company in Ottumwa that's now John Deere. So with that in mind, we'll go out and look at a close-up of some playground equipment, and then we'll head out to Loudendale. We'll also see the William and R.B. Loudon homes here in town before we go out. Well, here I am behind Fairfield High School at the ladder to the press box, and it's an adaptive reuse of an old Loudon slide ladder. And I guess my memories of the ladders were that they were a cast step with a pierced design. This is a pressed metal design with the letters raised as a tread on the step. And of course they would originally have been painted silver. You can see little bits of the silver underneath here. Maybe they were galvanized, I don't remember. I think maybe President Bush may have climbed this ladder when he was vice president. I'll have to ask Mr. Messerly and find out. We're out here at Loudendale now. I hope you can hear me despite the wind. This is the site of the old Loudendale barn. It would have been William Loudon's father-in-law's place. And as you can see, the barn is not going to be with us too much longer. So we're going to go take a look at it, work on our survey here. I'll walk with my back to the wind. We're going to be sketching the framing system. We have what's called the Iowa Site Inventory. It's a special form used to document old buildings. And we'll be using the form for the barn. We'll be recording floor plans, the type of foundation, the type of construction. The beams appear to be made of oak. I think this building was built in 1890, so it would not have been the original building that William Loudon worked with, but it does have some Loudon equipment in it. The litter carrier has been taken out years before, so it's been preserved. And we're going to try to keep some pieces of the pegwork and maybe one of the louvered windows for use in a permanent display at a later date. Will Page is walking around the site right now. He's going to take some pictures. I assume to try to get some of the detail of the framing. I see the remains of a ladder going up to the haymow. Beautiful large stone foundation. Will's moving back now to take some photographs. Yeah, I guess he's going around.
Oh, we could go through here. Open this gate.
Oh, okay. Gene, would this be called a bank barn then? I guess he can't hear me. I'm standing on this raised driveway that would go up into the main part of the barn. There he is. Yeah, Will has moved out here by this little creek. Sure. And that way he can get a picture from a distance. Oh, I can see pieces of barn track. See that vertical metal piece that's going right there? Looks like the floor of the haymow has collapsed, and there's that track now standing on end. But this raised causeway here would have taken the wagons right into the barn. It appears to be constructed with round nails rather than square. The photograph we looked at, I'm not sure which angle that was taken from, certainly from the end, but I don't know if it was from this end or not. Have you gotten any of the stonework on the foundation? Okay. Is that in the way? Oh, it's on the wrong side.
Hold it up.
Okay, like to my mouth?
Wind is cutting.
All right. All right. I don't know a lot about stonework, but we have kind of a rough construction at the bottom, and then the upper courses are more of a slightly more dressed stone, and I see some incising in the cement work in between the stones on this upper layer. A real large cornerstone to anchor the whole business. Take a look at the corner here, Will, or Richard, up there at the corner, that big beam. Right, yeah, right there. It's nice little detail of the pegging where the core of that log has been worn away, and that shows the kind of a cross section of the mortise and tenon. Great big old beams. It's just a shame that this thing is going to be gone soon. Well, it's a lot quieter on this side of the building. We're walking along the south side now. I'm going to take a look in the basement here. Yeah, we see the remains of stalls and some more truss work that's fallen in. A few wasps' nests here and there. I don't think they're active this time of year. And here again we see some remains of door track. If we go over here on the side that's leaning with the louvered window, see some remnants of track above that window. I know.
Gotta watch where we walk.
Yeah. Anyway, there are remnants of track above that louvered window there. Gives you a pretty good sense of how large this barn was. It's sad to see these old barns go, but at the same time you get some pretty fascinating shapes, the way the building collapses. You couldn't build something like this on purpose if you tried. All right, I want to take a peek on this end real quick. Okay. Oh, here are some remnants of, it's going to be too heavy. See if I can find another one of these. Here's one of the cast, get my scarf out of the way here. I don't know if you can see the name Louden there with my foot or not. This piece is broken. Should be another loop to the left to match it. I don't see any others offhand. Nope. Let's get a shot of this rafter here. Yeah. This is a nice close-up of the way the building was raftered, if that's a proper term. And I imagine some of that big hook there had something to do with the pulley system for the hay carrier and the hay fork. Beautiful large stones in the set foundation. You might get a shot at Gene taking notes over there. Oh, come on, Gene, get on camera. Yeah. A lot of hazards here. There, Gene Luedtke's inside there taking some notes. Oh, there's some track. We might want to get close and get a little shot of that track. There we go. There's a piece of that hardware we were talking about.
Hanger.
Good. Oh, that's called a hanger? I never know what these things are called. You look at these old catalogs and try to remember terminology, and then you forget. Watch your feet. That would have held that track up. That track is what the litter carrier would have run on. Well, I guess, does that about sum it up?
Yeah, why don't you wrap up this part?
All right. Why don't I get over here and just have that in the background? Whoops. Well, here I am at the Loudendale barn. We're going to head out pretty soon to the Galloway farm and examine a barn that was equipped with Louden track, I think an electrical system, which should prove to be pretty interesting. We're now pulling into the Sharon and Bob Galloway farm, south of Fairfield on Highway 1. We're just north of Mount Zion Church, which you can see in the distance. And they've done a lot of work on this building. On the home here is, what would you say, Will, 1870s?
It's an Italianate brick with a bay window on the south and a lot of interesting bracket work under the eaves, say 1870s, very early 1880s.
Okay, 1870s, early 1880s. It's an Italianate brick house. And we're going to get out now and take a look.
This building behind was the smokehouse.
And it's older than the house.
And then they don't know what this building up here was.
Okay, the little side porch here, I believe, is probably original to the house. Some lovely old stone steps. The front porch is missing, and the garage that's been built on here to the west appears to be old brick, and that's an addition, but they've done a nice job of blending that in with the old architecture. Nice little medallion, little pendant hanging below the cornice of the porch. And then here we see the bay window, 2 stories, with sandstone keystone and kind of a coined effect, that raised brick effect along the corners. And this small brick building behind the house, Mrs. Galloway told me that this is older than the house itself. There's a little outhouse in the distance. Appears to be a 2-holer. Watch out for the cord there. Oh, this is a fancy one. It has lath and plaster on the inside. It's a 3-hole. It'll still sound okay, won't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize for losing the sound.
All right, we lost our sound. Is it on? Is the sound on? Okay. Yeah, my sound system just got disconnected. Anyway, this is a 3-holer. Probably a more intimate close-up than the people who use this ever expected.
Galloways are going to be thrilled with that.
Let's get a close-up of the lath work here where the siding is pulled away. And those appear to be wire nails, not square nails. So this may be after 1890. Now behind us here is a little brick lean-to building. And I understand that the original function for this building is not known. Okay. Can we get a shot of Mount Zion steeple in the distance? Can you get that? Yeah, that's a good shot. A couple has just bought that abandoned church, and they're going to turn it into a wedding chapel and an antique store. I hope they make a go of it. To be the little brown church of Van Buren County. Anyway, we're approaching the outbuildings now. And these barns are the reason we're out here. They're equipped with Louden barn equipment. Looks like there's a machine shed over to the right, to the west. And the Galloways are in the process of making some decisions on what buildings are worth keeping and what buildings can be salvaged and possibly restored. And it looks like this one's on its way out. Maybe an old granary. It appears to be have some paneled partitions inside, which would allow for the storage of grain. Oh, a nice little diamond-shaped window up here in the haymow. And the remnants of lightning rod system. Definitely leaning. Let's get a shot of the inside of the granary. Looks like we got our little border collie friend here. Yeah, this definitely appears to be for grain storage. And it looks like these beams in the floor may have been reused from something else. They're notched out to suggest that they're from an earlier building. You can see axe marks where they were squared by hand. Nice piece of work in its day. Get a nice shot of the raftering here. And then here, of course, here's the granary. Looks like some varmints have chewed holes in the floor. It seems to be 3 partitions for the storage of oats and so forth. Oh, this is unusual. A nice strap handle and latch combination. Of course, it originally would have gone sideways, but that's come loose and is hanging free now. I had not seen anything quite like that before. And I guess there's another section on the other side. Oh yeah, these are intact. These are interesting. I'm guessing that these little slide. Oh, that's neat. I'm guessing that would be for letting grain slide out into a bucket. So it would work while it was part full anyway. That's a nice detail. But this farm was obviously a big operation. They have room for, they have 6 compartments here for the storage of grain. Be a lot of bushels here. And I'm guessing the farm wagon would be pulled by the horses through this drive. Nice little cement ramp here for easy access. Oh, and this is interesting. The door, actually slides in between this crevice between the floor and the ramp. And here we have that latch in place as it was meant to be, unlike the other one that's rotted away. And over on this side we have a little stop where the door would be kept from sliding off the end of its track. Can we get a shot of the track up under here? Now I don't know if this is a bird-proof track or not. Oh, I mean it's obviously bird-proof. The birds wouldn't be able to make a nest and clog up the works. And I don't know if this is a Loudon product or not. It may or may not be. I see some raised letters, some casting on the ends. I can't tell if it's a Loudon mark or not. Ooh. Now we're approaching the barns. We have a loading chute. Oh, some nice louvered shutters. It looks like, yeah, they don't open necessarily, but they are a louvered vent that can be opened and closed on the wall there. The louvers are blowing in the wind today. Can you get a close-up of that shutter there with the flapping louver? There we go. And it's my guess that this building is not long for this world. It's got kind of a roller coaster effect going on the roof there. We'll step inside here for a minute. Oh, say, let's get the weather vane over here on the cupola. On the far barn. We got a nice shot of that. She just blew away. The cupola up there on the far barn has a nice cow weather vane, and it had just swung around in the wind, and now she's turned away from us again. There, she's coming back. That was one of the Loudon weather vane styles that you see illustrated in the catalogs, and we can assume that that was a dairy barn if it had a cow on top. Okay, here's some nice covered track, some bird-proof track here on this side door. And a lovely weather vane up there on the roof. A fragment of the glass globe is still attached. The weather vane itself is in good shape. Sometimes the tail of the arrow would have a piece of stained glass, but I can't tell if that's stained glass or not. Interesting light fixture up here. With the fluted... Yeah, let's get a shot of this lamp right above your head. Interesting fluted cover for the bulb, and all kinds of old-fashioned porcelain, oh, what do you call those? Insulators for the wiring. And we have another concrete ramp. Oh, here's a nice roller down here. Let's get a shot of this. It's rusted, but it doesn't turn anymore. But that would be a little wheel that would guide the sliding door, keep it from flapping around. This is an old barn. We've got some logs here, and these joists for the haymow are flat on one side, still have the bark on the tree, or from the tree. This barn is made of oak, like the Loudendale setup. Gene, do you have any idea what's going on here? This notched out business? And
this is a stanchion so that they could bring livestock through. This would
Okay.
open up so the cow could
Okay.
put its head through, and then it has a lock that they could lock it. And I would guess that this is some sort of a tie thing so that they could tie around.
They could pull it tight.
Right, so they could stretch the cow's
Okay.
head out to dehorn it or
Okay.
whatever's necessary.
Okay. Whatever was necessary. We won't get into that. That could be kind of nasty. I was pointing out the bark on the beams above our head. Neat old barn.
Gene,
Yes.
the first one was the main barn looking southwest.
That's right.
And then I did this one looking south. This is the granary looking southwest too.
I think these cross pieces here, Richard, these T shapes here on these posts, wouldn't these be for harness?
Those would be for harness, yes.
And then we have a homemade hanger over here behind you for also for harness, no doubt. Well, these old barns are fascinating. This is probably the older of the two, and we'll go over to the large barn now that has the electric track for the Loudon litter carrier system. Well, here's a granary. We should probably look at that on our way. Wow, look at these beams. Oh, here's some nice old beams. Good shot of the pin work. The way they were notched out. Axe marks squaring those puppies up. And a corn crib, it appears, here. Gene, did you go in that granary over there? There were these little sliding panels to let the grain flow out.
It could be shut off, yes.
Yep. Here we have a Loudon track. You can see the Loudon insignia very clearly. Right up there. Looks like there's a number on there, 1620, 1629. Oh, it's a Loudon Roll Easy Track. And then I can't make out that number. It's probably the catalog number. You don't always see it. 1625. And then if you go over to the center, you can see a little apparatus to keep the track from going, the doors from going too far over, I imagine.
We need some of those.
Well, I imagine.
I've never seen those. I just put a block of wood up in mine.
Yeah, those are neat. And there's a little, looks like there's not much left of that door. Nice corn crib. Say, let's take a look at the door inside the corn crib. Notice those slanted, what do we call those? Slanted slat slits. There you go. That way the farmer could, I guess there's still one there at the top. You could just slip those boards in there and then remove them as needed.
This was made for ear corn because it has the ventilation siding. The boards are all native oak sawn.
Yeah. So native oak, wire nails again.
Hands are getting cold.
Are they? Do you want my gloves? Want a glove?
And then the next one's looking northeast.
Now, how do we get into the barn? Is there? Did you get a shot of the cupola from here, Richard, and that small weather vane on the end? Then we'll get inside. Woo! It's cold. Now, is this what you call a bank barn then?
This is a true bank barn.
Okay. What?
I'd like to finish up the photos too before. Have you done the photography up towards the north?
Yes.
We need to do the photography, and we also have to do a plan of the vent inside the barn. So those are the two things for the survey that need to be accomplished.
The little granary with the diamond window, if you go way up there on the hill, there are 3 bays on this side and then 3 on the north side. And the 3 on the north side still have the wall that has a little sliding doors to let the grain out. You'll want to get a shot of that. Do you understand which building I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my goodness, look at oh, this is wonderful. Oh, Richard, this will be nice shot of the truss work over here. You sure you don't want a glove?
What Gene is doing now is drawing what is called a diagram.
We're gonna have to go over there and look back. 'Cause the
Okay.
lighting-
Hey, you want to get close to my microphone?
Oh, is that the mic?
Yeah. Yeah, they're catching this in just in the nick of time.
Gene is making a drawing of the bent of the barn, and if Richard comes over here a little bit later, we can take a look and see what the diagram looks like. A bent is the technical term to describe the framing mechanism, and sometimes the internal is different from the external. And it's important to record the configuration that's used. Different builders use different configurations, and sometimes it's a diagnostic characteristic in barn design and planning.
Where does the term bent come from?
I think sometimes, depending on how the roof is configured, depends on whether this one's just a straight side gable roof, but sometimes when there's a gambrel, sometimes those are considered bends.
Okay. And there's been quite a bit of shoring up in here. There's some I-beam and cable and tie rod reinforcement. And this is the barn the Galloways intend to stabilize further and to restore.
Of course, we're on the loft level now.
Oh, and there's a little stairway. It looks like an attic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
We will be going down the little stairway down to the lower level.
Okay.
Let's do the bend while we're here, Gene, which would be actually a section view of the farm, of the framing system. In other words, if we're looking at it from this end looking in. Let's go back.
Ooh, antique windows. Oh, you're taping right now? All right. We've got some antique windows, looks like from the house, with arched panes, arched framework. Interesting.
Watch those offhand remarks.
It's always fun to see what's in an old barn. Lots of pigeons, that's for sure. Gene and Will are now looking over the framing design. as Will said, the bent of the barn. And this is a bank barn. It's built into the bank of this slight hill. We came up the ramp or bank of the barn. And if we were to walk out the other side, it would fall off of quite a drop. There's a whole different floor underneath us. We'll be going down the little stairway in a minute. It's enclosed. We'll get a shot of that, it looks like. It's a covered stairway so that you'd have access to the basement.
Look at hazardous. Do they pay for this?
Yeah, really. You know what? I think I may come the other way. I'm going to go out around the other way, Richard.
You can come in from the east.
Yeah, I'm going to. The old acrophobia started to kick in. Okay. There. Well, I came around the other way because I just don't like heights too well. And that stairway, although solid, looked a little iffy. We've got an interesting view of a fall-away foundation here. You can see that it's a double wall and a barred window. I don't know if that window is a Loudon innovation or just something the farmer came up with on his own. But here again, like at the Loudendale barn, you see large stones at the base and then smaller stones up toward the top. And here we have a view of the overhead track. With a little block on the end here. There's a little block on the end here to keep the litter carrier from falling off. Oh, wonderful. Look at these trees under here. My gosh, not much attempt to clean these up. There's lots of bark, remnants of branches even. And quite a long, oh, what do you call that? Yeah, the manger setup here with the slatted racks for holding hay, and there's still some hay in it. Some plywood panels have been added. Anyway, we kind of got off track here. We'll get back on track and come over to this interesting setup. We actually have a switch automated by electricity that I'm sure in its day was state of the art. And that goes clear around to the other end of the barn, and I don't think we'll be able to see that because of the dim light. But you can either go around the inside of the barn or the outside edge or the outside parameter of the barn using that track. Okay. Well, here we go. Here's Will coming down the stairs. Will, do you have any final comments to make here?
Final, we're just starting.
Well, I mean for the
Yeah.
tape. Here, we'll get you close to the microphone.
Big barn. The interesting thing about this barn is the fact that, of course, it was built in the 80s, or I suppose in the 1890s, and then modernized with Louden equipment. Have you talked about that?
A little bit. We talked about the track here with the switch.
The interesting thing about in the mow is the fact that there isn't actually a hayloft door in the gable end as one might expect, but what we see up there is a large grapple hook hay fork that actually accesses the hay as it's brought in by wagon up through the bank drive and door, and then the hay loading equipment is used to stack the hay within the barn rather than to bring it in from the outside as well.
I noticed the remnants of an old pulley attached to the base of the door frame by that bank. And I imagine that was a part of that apparatus.
Looks that way.
There'd be a horse outside pulling the fork up and down.
Did you look at this one? This is the switch where it goes two different directions with the litter carriers.
Let's see if we can get a photo of that. Would you put that on the photo log, Gene?
I'm getting out of the wind. Jiminy Kraut. Now they've put plywood here. Was hay pulled down from above and then pitched in, or how?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Ooh. It's warm in here, Richard. It is bitter.
Really something. Track here.
Yeah, so you can go around the perimeter of the building or
Yeah,
the
it goes.
inside.
It would go to that side and also down this side.
Oh, there's a little chute over in the corner. What?
No, it's a grain.
Yeah, there's a little grain chute over in the corner. Well, this is quite the little barn.
You know, Loudon did make. Are you on? Is this working?
Yeah, I
here?
think, yeah, we're on. Yes.
Loudon did make. Of course, this is a rectangular barn, and Loudon did make equipment for round barns, but from the catalogs, they weren't really too enamored with the round barn. And I think the reason for that is that it's a lot easier to do a monorail on a straight run than having to do a monorail on a circle. That causes all kinds of problems, and I think because the company was actually building these barns for the convenience of their equipment,
Sure.
that the round barn for Loudon equipment was not a preference.
Because the curved rail would just, like you say, would catch on it, I suppose, and
I think
not
it's
be
hard
as
to keep it
efficient.
level, too,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. So I think we're about done here at the Galloway as far as our filming is concerned. We'll finish up with our record keeping and try to quit shivering and be on with it. So I hope you've enjoyed this little trip down the Louden memory lane, and we'll be in touch again sometime as we survey more Louden related properties.
This is Will Page here.
And okay, we're just pulling out of the Galloway Drive, and we'd like to thank Sharon and Bob Galloway for allowing us to prowl around their property while they were gone. Lots of interesting details in that barn, and I think it's going to be a very nice addition to our survey project.
Yeah, the barn is interesting in its own right, and of course the remodeling is interesting, but the whole farmstead has, I think, real potential as a historic district listing on the National Register of
good.
Historic Places. Yeah.
Now, one thing we didn't get on the videotape was the round stock tank, and after we've looked at Mount Zion Church here a little bit, we'll want to talk about that, I think. Oh, I am so glad that this couple has decided to take the plunge with this building and try to give it an adaptive use.
Tell me about it.
I don't recall the couple's name, and I don't know where they're from, but are they going to live here? Maybe have an apartment in the basement and an antique store, and then the sanctuary of the church itself will be used as a marriage chapel or a setting for whatever seems appropriate for that particular space. And it's such a nice little spot on the landscape. It's just a lovely little building. Even though it was built in this century, I always prefer things that were 19th century, but I guess 1903 is old enough to count as a historic building. Yeah,
That's what the stone says.
Yeah, 1903.
Has it been deconsecrated now? Is it no longer
I would guess
Zion
so.
per se?
I would guess so. Now here we're coming back up on the Galloway farm, and as we go past the large barn on the left, you'll see a little lean-to addition, and we think that that was built on to accommodate the electric overhead track when that was installed. And then you see a little lean-to on the lean-to there in the center, about 5 windows in, and that's what holds that round wooden stock tank.
Then on the gable end, not really very visible now, but 5 or 6 years ago or more, you could see Midway Stock Farm painted on the gable end of the
Midway and
barn.
Farm is still pretty visible stock. You sort of have to guess at, but it's really quite a lovely layout. And that building is illustrated in an 1870s or 90s or whatever county atlas.
I've seen a historic photograph of the house itself. There was a wraparound porch, as I remember, on the southeast corner of the house, which would be commensurate with
Yes.
Italianate design.
Yes, and I don't know if it was picked up on the tape earlier, but that house is Italianate, and that's we say that because of the bracketed cornice, the fancy curlicue pieces underneath the roof, the eaves of the roof. And then there was that coined brick effect on the bay window. What do you call it? Is it a 2-story bay? And an oriel window?
It's a 2-story bay.
Okay.
An oriel window is
a bay
when
window
it's
on the second floor.
yes,
Okay.
or higher.
Oh, we just passed a pheasant. I don't know if we got that on camera or not. But a nice gray Iowa spring day.
You know, Mark, getting back to the Loudendale barn,
Yes,
I surveyed that back 18 years ago.
yes.
It's a long time, and time has taken its toll on Loudendale barn, and time has taken toll on us as well. But
Well, I like to think we're in better shape than the barn is, but oh well. But I'm glad that you did survey it that long ago, because obviously there's not that much left. Our intention is to salvage one of the louvered windows and a little bit of siding and replicate a small portion of that barn wall for our permanent Loudon display, in whatever form that takes.
the louvers back at the Midway Stock Farm, actually, we just crossed over, I think, was that?
Cedar Creek, I
Yeah.
think. No, I don't know. It's not Cedar Creek. I don't know what it is.
The louvers in the Midway Stock Farm barn actually have louvers as well, but they're working louvers.
Yes.
Did you notice that?
I noticed that on the smaller barn. Yeah, we got a nice shot on the video of the loose louvers flapping in the wind. And we took some close-up shots of the weather vanes and the cupolas and so forth. One thing that I don't think we photographed at the Midway Stock Barn.
We're just passing another one of these late 19th century farmhouses that have been taken down.
Yes.
And you know, after people have driven this route from number 1 between Fairfield and Keosauqua over the years, we've driven this, you and I, for the last 20 years or thereabouts.
Yes.
Think what people must have seen even 20 and 30 and 40 years before that in terms of the changes that have been taking place
I know,
on this
it's
stretch.
incredible. Well, I know our house was built, late 1860s probably, and I looked through that wavy old glass and wish it could be turned into a TV screen and push a button for a particular year, and just see what was seen through those windows. I think like our north window at the head of the stairs, you can see the corner where that famous photograph of William Coop was taken with his oxen in front of the old courthouse that had been moved there for a livery stable.
You know, it is true that a lot of old houses in Fairfield have been preserved, and I think that's very admirable.
Here we have here's a Loudon cupola, it looks like, on the roof of that barn.
You know, preserving buildings in the country is even more difficult than preserving them
Yes.
in town. The country has all kinds of practical needs in terms of supplying water and all kinds of and practical necessities, and people want to and need to have utilities that are up to date.
Oh my gosh, there must be 50 turkeys in that field. I suppose we didn't get that on camera, did we?
Wild turkeys.
They were grazing like cattle. I wish our driver had watched the road, though. I mean, it makes you wonder what he's thinking about.
Why don't we go back and take a look at the turkey?
We're going to go back and look at the turkeys. That is an excellent idea, Gene. Well, how many tangents are we going to get off on before it's over?
That's a geometric question, Mark.
And there's a bird trying to fly against the wind up there. He's not doing too well. Hawk, maybe.
Let's rename the show Look for the Turkeys.
This is Naturama. F-Pack Naturama. Oh, here we go. Oh my God. That's incredible. Look at all those. I've never seen so many. Holy cow. And to think these were extinct in Iowa 20 years ago.
They're all in a line, it seems. It looks as if grain spilled in some kind of
Isn't that something?
regularity.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. Well, there's 40 anyway.
They move faster than you
Yeah.
might think.
Isn't that something?
They're lined up in a row, aren't they?
Yeah, that's neat. Well, I'm glad we have a driver that can chew gum and walk at the same time. And then here's another barn with what is probably a Loudon cupola on the roof. Well, I was on some sort of thread, and I can't remember what it was now. It was terribly important. Oh, I remember. Back at the stock barn. The Midway stock farm barn. In the lower corner of the big door on the side at the top of the ramp, there was the remnants of one of the hay pulleys. And from the diagrams that I've seen in the old catalogs, that would have been one of the pulleys used to attach to that U-shaped single tree that the horse would have, been attached to the rope that was pulled back and forth for lowering and lifting the hay fork. We're approaching Birmingham now. An historic Morton building on our left.
Yes. Formerly Hog Haven.
There you go. I've always liked this wraparound porch on the house on the left. And I like the look of cedar trees planted in the yard. think we need to talk on camera about the challenge we've faced in terms of establishing the identity of barns actually designed by the Loudon Barn Planning Service. We had thought it was going to be, they were going to be a dime a dozen, easy to find, and we're not having that much luck.
I think that's true. The fact of the matter is that the Loudon Architectural Department was one among many departments in the company. There was also an engineering department, there was an advertising department, clearly there must have been an accounting department, and personnel, and so on and so forth. The fact of the matter is that, according to the documents, the Architectural Planning Division was really there to promote the sale of Loudon equipment. And it's becoming clear that all of this business worked in very much an ad hoc way, at least here in the vicinity of Jefferson County. That is, people probably were interested in buying pieces of equipment and did so to remodel their barn, to update them, but not necessarily to employ the architectural division from the start, and then to equip the barn from the start. So I think the chance of finding in a barn that's intact, that was designed by Loudon and equipped by Loudon, is going to be not going to be real possible.
Yeah.
That kind of operation seems to have been pretty much restricted to the big institutional or the big corporate farm
Like the Hershey
operations,
farms and
like the Hershey's, or like the state institutions for welfare.
like a county farm type.
A county
setting.
farm, exactly.
Okay.
And of course, you know, during the first couple decades of the 20th century, dairy farming became very popular as a kind of, for capitalists, as another source of income. A real estate developer that had been successful oftentimes tried dairy farming as a secondary pursuit, and sometimes those people would go to Loudon and ask to have a complete plan from soup to nuts, from the building to the equipment. I think that's something going on at the one farm up in Hedrick that we have yet to look at. But not very many people locally here in the county seem to have been interested in that kind of an
Well,
operation.
they may have taken it for granted. It was here and just part of the scenery, and who knows. Makes you wonder what Marie Antoinette would have done playing shepherdess if she'd had William Loudon to contend with.
Is that a question?
Well, I don't know. It's just rhetorical of some sort. I don't. You know, she had that little farm, and she
The milking
had,
parlor?
Yeah, and her little herd of sheep with their bows. You know, like Mary had a little lamb, kind of a deal. But I'll bet you she would have had William Loudon design herself a dairy. It's just too bad the French Revolution came when it did.
Actually, Loudon was a Scot.
That's true too, but he did. I mean, they did. Loudon materials were used in Iceland and Norway and France, of course. I don't know if have I told the story on camera about the chateau in the Bordeaux region, Samson Chernoff's place. Mrs. McCoy was Roberta Loudon McCoy, the daughter of R.B. Loudon. Toured Europe with her parents and Dr. and Mrs. Clark after 1927 International Rotary Convention in Belgium.
Tell about the car, the automobile.
The touring car, the Buick?
Yes.
Yeah, the Clarks took their Buick over, their touring car, and Roberta took her bicycle. And she got to ride on these nice smooth asphaltum or smooth paved bicycle paths, and they had to bump along on the cobblestones. But they visited the Chernoffs, and he was a white Russian aristocrat who fled the Bolsheviks when the communists took over in Russia, and ultimately married an American railroad heiress, and her money allowed them to buy this chateau in the Bordeaux region of France. And he thought the French drank too much wine and opened a dairy and had Loudon's equip it. And of course the barns are built of the same limestone as his French Renaissance style castle.
Now, when was that?
This would be 1927.
Now, was General Pershing the contact between the Count and R.B. Loudon?
Well, that's hard to say.
No, that's an open question, and that's
That's
why
true,
I asked you.
and you are using good questioning strategies for an interview. I had visited Mrs. McCoy in Mount Pleasant this past February here in 1996, and her son was there, and they were going through papers and photos, and her son David grabs this wad of envelopes, and he says, "Oh, the Pershing correspondence." And it turns out that R.B. Loudon and General
Pershing.
James, I think, is it,
John Pershing.
oh, is it John J. Pershing? Oh, okay. All right, whatever. I thought it was James. Doesn't matter. J.J. Pershing, whatever. We'll have to look this up. But John J. Pershing, also known as Blackjack, they had known each other in college in Kirksville and kept up a quasi-correspondence over the years. And I think the prize of the collection was a little calling card. It said, Brigadier General John J. Pershing, in little Gothic script. That was the calling card, and then handwritten in ink, it was said, "Dear Bob and Mrs. Loudon, sorry I won't be able to meet with you tomorrow. I'm leaving town because of the Mexican situation, JJP." Well, the Mexican situation, we think, was in 1916 when Pancho Villa burned that little town in New Mexico, and Pershing took a contingent of several thousand American soldiers and invaded Mexico, 300 miles?
But wouldn't it make sense for General Pershing, when confronted with expatriate Russian Count wanting to conduct dairy operations in the Bordeaux region of France, to
true.
refer him to a school chum in Fairfield,
That's
Iowa?
true. We should ask. That would be, yeah. I think we can just assume that that's true.
I think we can too.
I don't think that's good history, but I think we can do it anyway. But that just leads us to the fact that the Loudons have just had a fascinating history. All this barn equipment went into so many areas. Let's see, Mrs. McCoy was talking about having shaken hands with Woodrow Wilson at the White House.
Well, I think quite a few people did do that.
Well, I know, but they're not still alive. I've not met any of them before. And let's see. Oh, eating dinner with the Hersheys at the Hershey Mansion in Pennsylvania. And some cream separator magnate. They were at his home for dinner, and the butler kept walking in and whispering things in this guy's ear. And finally he said, after the butler had come in several times, he says, "Oh, excuse me, Mr. Loudon, but I think you are inadvertently bumping the butler's buzzer. You're calling the butler, so lay off." So they were kind of embarrassed and kind of amused all at the same time. And well, that was the estate where she drove her first car. Mrs. McCoy said it was a Pierce Arrow. That was the first car she ever drove.
I'm interested in this business with the automobiles and the Loudons because I think that I have the idea that R.B. Loudon was interested in automobiles, and as a result encouraged the company to develop the garage door
Oh, that's
overhead
interesting,
hanger.
yeah.
You see, that's a real good and logical extension of the monorail concept.
Yes.
And for someone that's interested in automobiles, that same person would be interested in security for an automobile with a garage and a garage door. And so I'm wondering if that's not a connection.
That makes sense, because now William Loudon did not like automobiles, but R.B. liked to drive, and then Mrs. McCoy said that he wasn't a very good driver, and the family would always try to get to the car first to edge him out of the driver's seat. But that notwithstanding, they had that big double garage built onto the back of their house at the corner of 2nd and Washington, and it had those automatic garage door openers. Do you know about those? They look like little elephant's tails. You stick a key in the little nozzle on the end, and that would open the door automatically. Well, we're coming back into Fairfield, it looks like, and the home of just innumerable Loudon garages, I'm sure. We know of 2 now, at least. And we're going to try to swing by the country club and take a quick look at what was it called? The big merry-go-round deal. What was that called?
Whirl-Around.
Yes, the Whirl-Around. I just keep thinking about how dangerous that equipment was. I mean,
The dentist's delight, the swing bob, it looked to me as if a real excellent recipe for broken,
everything.
Yeah.
Noses, teeth, faces, chins,
and
necks.
a dozen children could be accommodated.
Can you imagine the momentum they could build up? Oh well. Oh, we'll be going by Loudon Drive. That's perfect. Loudon Drive is, of course, one of the new developments out in this area. Oh, I should mention also on camera, we talked about the basketball hoops. The McCoys actually have a Loudon basketball hoop in their backyard. There, Loudon Drive. Loudon and Fillmore. And this brushy area down here would have, I think it's what was once part of the Underground Railroad. The escaping slaves would make their way up this little creek to a safe house on South Main. Well, I think it's significant also that R.B. Loudon played in the first golf game here in Fairfield. Dr. Clark had the one club that he had brought from Chicago, and they went out in Lamson's pasture and buried their tomato cans and played some golf. And that was the beginning of what we have here on the left, being the Fairfield Golf and Country Club. So, Will, is this really the first golf club west of the Mississippi, or does Burlington hold that?
If you say something loud enough and long enough, some people will begin to believe you.
Okay. Well, we'd like to think in Fairfield that it's the first. I think the Burlingtonites would dispute that, but I guess that's beyond
The
me.
people in Charles City have a golf club called Wildwood.
Oh, yes.
And it's an early one as well. I think it dates from maybe 1909, 1910.
Oh, well, this is 1890s. Forget it. Yeah, I think we're going to have just enough daylight. We had planned to visit another barn. This was a barn, actually, the one barn that we actually have located by the Barn Planning Service, built in 1947, and said to be the last barn designed by the company in this county. And they still have the original blueprints. And we had thought that, oh good, this is going to be easy, because early on I found out about this. But that's the first and only barn that we've located. So we're going to go out now and look at the merry-go-round.
Whirl-Around.
Whirl-Around, I can't remember it.
Can't just stay here.
Yes, Gene, you can. We'll let you. You need to guard my shingle.
Just walk right in.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We're gonna walk around behind the club.
I don't know where this is.
Around behind.
My goodness. There we go. Well, that looks like what it's supposed to be.
Do we know, Mark, where it was originally located?
Well, for all I know, it's always been here, but I don't know.
Right, so a little bit higher.
Okay. Will asked me where this was originally located, and I don't know. Maybe at Logan School, and maybe always here. It's hard to say. I'm guessing that turquoise and white are not the original colors.
I think the original colors would have been Loudon gray,
No doubt.
something they were proud of. Sort of a metallic. Sometimes it was baked on. And the fact of the matter is that since I'm not a state employee and I'm not speaking for the state, I can say whatever I want to say, but the National Register does recognize a category of listing called object.
Yes.
And this Loudon Whirl-Around might be such an object.
I would guess that it might be. And that looks like old concrete at the base. We're missing one vertical member there, but I think that could be replicated.
Whereabouts is that, Mark?
Here on this corner, close to us.
Yeah, I see now what you're talking about.
And I don't see the name Loudon anywhere on this.
But it does look like the diagram we saw in
It
the
sure
brochure.
does. It sure does.
Do children still play on this in the summertime?
Well, I would think so. They swim in the pool, so they're bound to.
It's a pretty setting.
Yes, it is. Well, this is a lovely course. Nice rolling piece of ground. But it sure is cold.
What kind of trees are these? Shag bark.
Well, I don't, that looks like that's a maple tree. Is that a maple tree?
Soft maple.
Yeah, that's a maple tree.
It's been here for a while.
Oh, I wonder if those are Loudon swings down there. Are we too cold to look?
There'll be another time.
All right.
While we're here, why don't we go down and
All
check
right.
it out?
You guys can go on ahead, and I'll come back. Oh, they're coming. I'm reminded I need to keep talking, but I'm busy being warm. Yeah, we're heading down here to check out this swing set, and we'll be able to tell by the couplings up there on the corners at the top whether these are indeed Loudon pieces. Because a lot of these couplings have the Loudon name cast right into the fitting. Well, they darn well better be, because I'm ready to go somewhere warm. Well, let's see here.
Oh, it looks like a Loudon up there at the top.
Yes.
The couplings are.
Yeah, if our cameraman will get over on this side, we can see the Loudon insignia.
There's a patent date up there. I
Right up
think.
there. And so this set could very well be eligible for the National Register as well, I would think. An interesting adaptation of barn equipment.
Well, actually, it's an extension of their whole use for what Gene Luedtke calls anything in iron.
Do you think that those were the original seat arrangements in the Ford?
Well, they look
They've
like
been
they...
adapted from something else.
Oh, I see. I don't know.
Hopefully we have to get on the seats and we'll post.
No, I think we'll pass. Mark can.
Oh, all right. Well, being a kid at heart, I hope this holds. There. Hey, this is Mark Shafer for FPAC. I hope you've enjoyed our trip. I have. I'm just a kid again, I guess.